Welcome to the SEO.co Search Engine Optimization Podcast. Digital marketing essentials and next level tactics. From offsite and on-site optimization to persuasive selling and everything in between. You'll learn actionable tips on what it takes to outright and outrank your competition. Now, here's your host, Timothy Carter.
Thanks for joining me on the podcast. Today we're going to talk about 7 ways you can humanize your brand and win big. People are innately social beings. We crave connection and interaction, specifically with other humans. 10 times out of 10, a customer is going to choose to interact with a person over a cold corporate entity. This puts brands at a distinct disadvantage, but it doesn't necessarily knock you out of the game. The most successful brands like Coca-Cola's, Apple's, and Nike's of the world don't allow this inhibiting factor to prevent them from engaging with customers. Instead of fighting an uphill battle to reset the way people think and interact, they work with the natural tendencies of the human brain. They humanize their brands in ways that make their marketing more relatable and magnetic, and you can too. So, to humanize your brand is to make your brand feel like a friend that your customers have known for years. It's not about predictability, but rather familiarity. Your goal is to be relatable and magnetic, consistent and honest, reliable and warm. So, how do you do that? Well, here are some ways, 7 ways, you can humanize your brand online and win big. Number 1, be true to yourself. For many brands, being human is a projection rather than a practice. However, sounding human is different from being human. Brand humanization is not a simple task that can be enacted merely by social media managers. It should be spread inherently from one's company culture. So the notion that you should be true to yourself sounds cliche and cheesy, but it's absolutely essential. We're not talking about being true to yourself in the sense that you have to chase your dreams. We're talking about authenticity and consistency. Man, say that 10 times fast today. Your branding should be consistent with who your company really is. If your company is full of quirky individuals who like to have a good time, your branding should be creative and spontaneous. If your company is very professional and pensive, your branding should reflect these behaviors as well. So when you're true to your brand, your marketing comes much more naturally. You don't have to worry about filtering, censoring, or tweaking how you say something. It naturally flows out what you're already doing, and people notice this. Number 2, educate, don't sell. Think about the last time a friend recommended a product to you, a product that you eventually went out and bought. Whether it was a book, a car, or a new restaurant, it's highly unlikely that your friend came in and delivered a buttoned-up sales pitch. Instead, he or she made you aware of why they liked the product so much and why you needed it. Think of your online audience as a group of friends, Don't deliver an infomercial. Instead, focus on educating them. Highlight their problems, acknowledge the friction they're dealing with, and gently mention how your products address these issues. When discussing your products, focus on solutions, not features. In other words, don't sell your audience on the fact that your flashlight has twice the lumens as the closest competitor. Instead, help them understand why a brighter flashlight is better and what solution your model offers. In this case, increased visibility and safety. Number 3, go behind the scenes. People love to see what's going on behind the scenes. Wizard of Oz, for example. It's why film outtakes, documentaries, backstage tours, and biographies are so popular. Any opportunity you have to take your audience behind the scenes will do wonders for your brand. Facebook Live is one of the best options. Something as simple as pictures from a company picnic or a blog post about how the idea for the latest product came about can work too. And since we're talking about pictures, number 4, leverage visual content. Nothing against written copy, as I'm a writer. We do a lot of writing here at SEO.co, but it doesn't come anywhere close to matching the value of visual content. sight is still one of the strongest human senses. In order to truly connect with people, your brand needs to leverage as much visual content as possible. This includes, professional quality video content production, and that can help you build your audience and convey meaningful ideas in a way that a traditional blog post simply can't. Consider using video to showcase your employees and tell your company's story. Also, humor is important. You just have to know when and where to use it. Memes can be super effective. Just make sure they're relevant and appropriate to your brand. Otherwise, they'll create confusion for your audience. Original photos. Your customers want to see the people behind the logo. Make sure your Instagram feed or your Facebook feed or your Twitter stream is filled with more than product pictures and graphics. Toss in the occasional picture of team members for that humanization factor. Number 5, stay consistent. People occasionally act out of character, but for the most part, people tend to behave in ways that are consistent with their personalities. The same should be true of your brand. The best way to keep your brand voice consistent is to establish and maintain a brand style guide. Anytime a new employee is brought on, they should be required to read this style guide from front to back, regardless of whether they produce content or work in a customer-facing position. They've got to know. Number 6, engage back and forth. Human-to-human relationship is a two-way street. At least I hope so. If one person steadily stops interacting, that relationship ceases to exist. The same is true with a brand. It's important to engage back and forth. Make sure you're asking questions, answering questions, sharing ideas, and listening, which is really important. Social media is the perfect environment for this, but you can also engage via blog comment sections, forums, and message boards, emails, and even podcasts. Number 7, and definitely not the last or the least, it's just where we're going to wrap it up today. It's work with influencers. So it's hard to be everywhere at once, even if you have a large marketing team at your disposal. One way to ease some of this pressure and still maximize engagement is to partner with social media influencers. Influencers should be chosen very carefully and monitored on an ongoing basis. You want people who reflect your brand values and understand your objectives. They're obviously free to be themselves, but you need to ensure that their true values align with your brand's identity at the core. Too much inconsistency will create problems for your brand, and working with that influencer may seem contrived at that point. So make sure that both sides are on point and have a mutual understanding there. So as we wrap this up, give your brand a winning edge. There are a lot of good brands out there, but really very few take the time to humanize their approach in a way that maximizes engagement and produces healthy, long-term relationships with customers. However, you can be the exception. As you can see that we've talked about here, in the seven ways, humanizing your brand just means cutting through all of the cold corporate jargon and showing the marketplace who you really are, what you believe, where your passion lies, and how you can help move people from where they are to where they want to be. Do these things well, and you'll beat the competition with consistency and predictability. And that's it for today's episode. If you need some help being able to scale that ability and create that killer content, come on over to SEO.co and schedule a time to have a free consultation. Learn how we can help you scale your ability to outwrite and outrank your competition.
Thank you for joining us on the SEO.co podcast. We appreciate your time. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the show, and visit SEO.co for more resources based on today's topic, as well as access to more podcast episodes to help you improve your site's long-term SEO success.